This presentation is on cloud network security, specifically best practices for the EdTech environment. So some security considerations when choosing a cloud computing service. There are several well-established options, obviously. These services provide built-in security features, continuous monitoring capabilities, and strong access controls for a range of companies and organizations. Some of the top competitors are AWS, so Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and also Microsoft Azure. The company that I work for chose AWS because of its well-established footprint. Its solution for security is taken very strongly. It has a range of extra services, and it provides readily available documentation for SOC compliance, which streamlines the auditing process for our technical officer. So SOC stands for Systems and Organization Controls, and there are two levels. SOC 2 is a security framework that specifies how organizations should protect customer data from unauthorized access, the security incidents, and then other vulnerabilities. The American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the AICPA, actually developed SOC around 5 trusted services criteria. And the overarching one is security, obviously, and this applies to the remaining TSCs. Availability refers to the accessibility of information that is used by the organization and also that of the products and the services that will be offered. Processing integrity refers to whether or not the cloud environment is happening in a timely, accurate, valid, and effective manner. Also, who has authorization to that processing and the data that is collected from such. Confidentiality is to safeguard the private information and who has authorization. Usually that is aligned with the contractual obligations that come from the K-12 or HE, higher education. And also privacy. Privacy just refers to that PII, the personally identifiable information, and who has access to that information. So, it's the things that require things like two-factor authentication and encryption of data. So obtaining a SOC 2 report helps businesses maintain security standards, and it also unlocks growth opportunities because it builds trust with customers. Many organizations will choose either SOC or ISO. And in addition to having SOC compliance, we also have ISO compliance within the company. And so this is an additional security certificate that was earned pretty recently. And it is kind of required for many state education departments from a contractual perspective. And so that is really one of the things that drove the decision-making process to add that, because it is a financial consideration to add in another layer. While both SOC and ISO evaluate security controls to protect customer data, ISO is recognized internationally, and it focuses on an ongoing management of like an operational information system, an ISMS. So part of that is to develop an actual incident response plan, and there are a series of steps, but overarching main ideas to organize a business continuity and disaster recovery team. And that includes stakeholders, right? Not everybody, but those that need to be involved in the process and outline the responsibilities pretty succinctly for them. Complete a business impact analysis, a BIA, to identify recovery efforts toward the assets that are critical to the operations. Implement a backup procedure for documents and records and ensure that those backups are performed regularly to ensure minimal disruptions. determine what the redundancy system will be beyond the third party risk management that is offered by the cloud provider. And so that could be achieved through automatic scaling infrastructure environments that you are able to configure with load balancing capabilities. And also outline an action plan for your BCDR team and the senior management notification outline when there is a disaster declaration. So there are three levels of disaster declaration and definitions according to our company, and typically what's outlined within the audits and paperwork. So the first is of a low nature, and so that's like a loss of confidentiality, integrity, availability, business capabilities, monetary loss, or reputation. And you'll see that is a consistent theme throughout all levels, but the degree of what it is and the examples and then the amount of time that it takes before we have to actually declare that it is a real emergency. So examples of a low thing that requires a 48-hour kind of response would be a software failure, an internet outage, power outage, some kind of human error, right? That would happen. Medium requires a 24-hour notification, and so that's a loss of confidentiality, but it's that of more of a significant nature. And things of that nature would include hardware failure, data breach, whether or not there's a data corruption in some way, application outage, or if there is a trade disparagement. And then finally, like our ultimate, right, would be a complete catastrophic loss of our business capabilities, monetary loss. And so that's a 12-hour notification time, and it's a total data loss. It would require a rebuild, according to our technical officer. Worst case scenario. So the things that would be ideal, right? Like things that need to happen is that you have to provide a robust company training that is on the data security and privacy throughout the company. Make sure that the ISO guidelines are reviewed and signed by each employee upon onboarding. And then do an annual security awareness training, either in person or digital format, and make sure that that video is also available to the new employees that are onboarding. Also consider contracting with a third-party consulting firm to appear as a matrix-like hacker that can provide phishing attacks to bring awareness and to decrease employee vulnerability across the company. And while that may be hard on or challenging on a small startup scale, it would be valuable because that is usually individual vulnerabilities, personal individual errors is where hackers are able to access. So unique challenges for EdTech startups for K-12 and higher education specifically in that department, it's the privacy criticality of the student data that's being housed. When there's integration with student information systems like Google Classroom or Canvas, and learning management systems, if you're able to get into, say, the grading software, then because it is uploading that data, it's going to provide more access to data breaches. And then also the security of the teacher-facing data, individual assignments and whether or not students are kind of seeing those things also, and what the teacher is able to see. The challenges for the company perspective then are obviously those because it's the company, it's the customer that we serve. But for the company, it's also determining like an appropriate separation of production, development, beta, and our feature environments. And also determining like what the public-facing website footprint actually appears like, and how much access is really provided for potential customers and online users. So best practices overall for EdTech startups in terms of network security that I've learned have been to determine like what is going to provide the highest security posture for the contractual obligations that you have, and also determine the financial investment and do a cost analysis to determine what's going to serve the company best. It's a hard thing to do one thing and then to have to go back and to add in another. So to streamline that process would be good. Make sure to eliminate production data in the development department. Make sure that that information is not available. Build a load balancer that is going to be a public subnet that will whitelist limited ports that are configurable through AWS or at the web server level. That will actually limit the access coming in. Maintain intellectual property rights by limiting access to code base in GitHub for our web design and those types of things, and also the digital PDFs that we have that are stored in AWS. Those actually require a token, and so that is a good practice. And then finally, I think the last thing is to be able to stay abreast of vulnerability. And that happens through the SANS Institute trainings. They also have a listserv and a network, and they send out publications. And that really provides a heartbeat on emerging vulnerabilities for K-12 and network security.